We have basically a runaway government. We have, not citing any particular instances, but let's just talk about the pensions in the state. The regular working family that goes out on Social Security might get $1,000, maybe $2,500 for a joint return, per month, and yet we have people that retire from being a mayor, being whatever, getting exorbitant amounts of money. 80% of their pay, and if it's 110, that's 88,000, plus 70% of their health care paid for the rest of their life. Now, in addition to that, we're paying for the new mayor or the new counselor or whomever on top of that. And in some cases, you have a triple or quadruple redundancy. So we need to, basically throw out the bathwater and hold on to the baby, because everything is so out of control. The legislature allowed, and let's talk about pensions, which I think should be my focus. The legislature allowed a person from Salem who never paid into the system. After he died, they voted to give his wife a pension. Now, I have as much compassion as anyone else. However, he never paid into the system. And that's wrong, and that's only one of the wrongs that goes on up at the State House.
Bob, I need a question. Right, the fact is Michael Ruane is the gentleman. He's a former either state trooper or policeman, I think. He passed away, and he did pay into the system, but he had retired and then he had taken it out. I think that's what the instance was, but he did not pay into the system. He had taken his previous retirement. Well, anyway, I know the guy. The fact is, you're right, he shouldn't have gotten that pension. He shouldn't have gotten that pension. Because it's not, frankly, it's not fair to some of the other employees, who are in a similar situation who don't get that as well. I don't disagree with you that state government does need to be reformed. Trust me, when I came into the treasurer's office in the first 6 weeks in office, and Irving was talking about this, remember the people in state government who were stealing the money? $9 million gone. Trust me, I understand what corruption is. I understand what you have to do to root it out, and it's a pretty disappointing thing to have to go in and to fix those kinds of problems, and I've done that, and I've cut state government. And the fact is, more needs to be done, and more needs to be done to restore the public's confidence, because you have these anecdotal stories of people who are ripping off the system, and then it makes you think that this is what's happening all throughout state government. But again, I'm going to remind you that half of the $12 billion that would be cut out of this state budget, half, that's every single state employee. That's the people who aren't doing their job, who are sleeping when they're supposed to be working, but that's the people who are working their tails off to make us safer every day, to educate our kids. So I agree with you. We have to reform state government. We have to reform the pension system. But that's not what we're talking about here tonight. What we're talking about here tonight is decimating the parts of government that do work. So what I think is that more people like you should run for office, Carla should run for office, people should run for office and work to fix things. That's how you change things.
That's going to change it, even begin to change it, like a vote to end the income tax will. They have refused. The governor has refused all year long to keep his promises. Howie Carr did a great column about how they're going to pretend to be making some reforms. If you haven't seen it, it was in the Herald in the last week. Read it. It's great. The police detail that they're pretending to reform, they haven't even touched it. So, but this is about government employee pensions and all government waste. It most certainly is. If, by the way, $5 billion is the correct number of what is spent on government employee salaries, and it does beg the question of what are they doing with the other $42 billion every year, as well as the $27 billion being spent at the local level. So, but the government employee pensions is a very important point, because it's not just these so-called outliers or so-called situations of abuse. It is a fundamental, massive, widespread inequity between the private sector and the government sector. The government haves and the government have-nots. The people in the private sector are many of them have no pension at all. They have no pension. They may have a 401k, they may not. but they have no pension. They have Social Security. That's it. Government employees have very lucrative pensions in addition to the equivalent of a 401k. They haven't been paying Social Security taxes all their lives. They've been paying much less in an employee contribution. And they have what's called defined benefits, which is almost unheard of in the private sector, meaning they're guaranteed a certain level of income, often 80% of their highest pay in their last 3 years of working. This doesn't exist in the private sector. The pensions that are being given to the everyday government employee are worth probably six or seven figure number higher than the value of what the private sector employee taxpayer is going to get, largely because they're not going to get to retire until Social Security lets them, whenever that may be in this economy, whenever they might see anything at all from Social Security. Well, government employees are retiring in their 40s and 50s and early 60s on 80% of their highest pay. The inequity is stunning, and we must address this issue. Ending the income tax is required to address this inequity that is bankrupting the people of Massachusetts.